What is up, Active Lifers? Welcome back to the Active Life Podcast. I'm Dr. Sean Pastuch. I'm your host, and today's guest is my good friend, Shante Cofield, the Movement Maestro. Shante is, I don't even know the best way to describe Shante, because she's Shante. There is no second one, right? She is cut from a mold that they threw out after they made it because it was so good. I love Shante. I love having Shante on the podcast. I love talking to Shante. Today, she's going to talk to you all about how to authentically build a personal brand. And for those of you who are hearing that and saying right now, I work somewhere, I'm a teacher, I'm a whatever, I don't need a personal brand. You already have one. You already have a personal brand. People think of you as a certain way. They would describe you as a certain way. What Shante talks about on the podcast today is really thinking about, how do you want people to describe you? How do you want people to find you? How do you want people to talk about you? And I think it's a good listen for anybody, especially if you have a phone and use social media. Before we get to the podcast, remember, if you like it, if you're compelled to think, oh man, my friend needs to hear this, share it with a friend. Head to wherever you're listening. Leave us a review. That's the lifeblood of the podcast. Let's get you to the show. Shante Cofield, welcome back to the Active Life Podcast.
Dr. Sean, thanks for having me.
Of course. You're one of my favorite people to talk to. And when we do our entrepreneur calls and you can't make it, I'm like, oh, fuck.
Dude, I was sad last week. I was talking to someone about you and I was just like, it has been so cool. I'm not even sure who I was talking to. I think that our relationship has been really cool in my mind, my eyes, my opinion. Just because, like I said, I think it was on my podcast that I wasn't so fond of you 9 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was. And now you're legitimately one of my favorite people. And I recommend you to no end. I'm like, oh, you have any kind of business interest? Follow Dr. Sean. You're passionate about something and you want to convey it. You want to lead people. Follow Dr. Sean. So it's been really cool to see that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think, 9 years ago, I was an easy person to not want to do business with. I don't blame you. I actually had a conversation with Kelly Starrett about this yesterday. I told him, I'm like, man, I'm struggling with something that I believe you are world class at, and I would love your help. And he's like, let's talk. Call me up. So I called him. And he's like, what's up? I'm like, you are world class at bringing value to valuable people. And I struggle to do it because I just don't want to play the game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and you're not playing a game. So help me learn how to do it in a way that is genuine and aligned with what I'm into, and help me do that. And he did. And we talked about me 9 years ago. Right. And he's like, look, I think you had to be aggressive to cut through the way that you were trying to cut through. But he's like, I like you much better now.
Yeah,
me too.
Bad. It was definitely a different landscape. Everything was getting its footing, and it was the Wild West. Like, yes. So to me, one of the coolest things is seeing who's still around, because some people are not. And you're like, where did you go? I thought you were on a really, great trajectory, and where did you go? And the flip side is also like now having relationships and interactions with people and being able to call up Kelly and being able to call up you and be like, wow, this is a really cool evolution of things.
You know what I'm projecting that might not be true at all? A lot of the people who were around, were hot for the moment, who aren't now, I think many of them were probably trying to climb a mountain to get to the top.
Yeah.
Instead of climbing a mountain because they like climbing mountains.
Totally. 100%. 100%. And the thing that was interesting, because I totally agree, I think they were in a unique place because this is like I want to call it the beginning of online business. Not that it was not the beginning of online business, but using the online space for this fitness movement, training, coaching, whatever, was new. Very much, very new. And like using it to market yourself and having personal brands was new. And so it's so interesting. I totally agree that people were using it to try and climb a mountain. I'm like, but you don't even know what mountain you're climbing. So interesting to be like, when I get to the top, I'm like, how do you even know you're there? But I think that speaks to, something that we both share of just enjoying the process, enjoying that journey and being like, this is cool to be doing this thing.
Yeah. It's enjoying climbing. I don't know what the top looks like. I'm not even thinking about the top. I'm just trying to climb.
That's it.
Yeah.
100%.
I remember when I first got on Instagram, my sister at the time was like, you got to get on Instagram. I'm like, that's a place where girls go to post pictures. And she was like, you're an idiot. Get on Instagram. And I did. And she was right. And, yeah. But so you're one of the people who I have to follow, right? Like on Instagram. And I want you to talk about this because there's this notion out there nowadays, especially, be authentic, be your authentic self. And wasn't there even like an app that was like the authentic app and it reminded you to say something genuine?
I mean, right now there's Be Real, which is like,
okay,
it doesn't remind you to do something, but you're supposed to take a picture and it's like not filtered and like, be real. What are you doing in this moment? Okay.
So that stuff.
Yeah. That.
and I understand why it's hard for from especially newer entrepreneurs to understand what does it mean to be authentic, because they're trying to put themselves out in a way that makes them seem credible and makes them seem valuable. And they want to avoid you seeing them struggle in any way. And they also want to avoid sharing their struggle in a way that's too deprecating, right? You don't want to be like, I'm having the worst day. I woke up. You do it so much better than anybody else on Instagram. Period. End of sentence. You're so good at it. How do you do it?
I think it's a few factors. One being, I will never stop crediting her, my mom, and just the confidence she instilled in me from day one, and the things that she maybe purposefully or inadvertently, I don't know, helped me believe it mattered and were important to focus on. And that's very largely set me up for success. I think that I am also good at and enjoy things that more people tend to enjoy. Like, let's just call a spade, like sports and the way that people put sports up on a pedestal versus other things. And if you are good at sports or you like this thing, it's just like more people value it or like it. And so that happens to be just what, floats your boat, flips your pancake. Okay, cool. Then it's a little bit easier to just lean into it because you already inherently know, like, I'm not going to get attacked for this thing. But to speak to one point that you said earlier that I think is actually very, very, very valuable, that people putting themselves out there as professionals are, concerned about how they're going to come off, and they don't want to come off as too lacking the experience and such. I think the important thing is, number one, teach from the scar, not from the wound. Like, people come on and then they're like still in it. If you're still going through stuff, no, you're not an expert on this thing. If you are like processing emotions and trauma or whatever, like, no, you're not qualified to be teaching on this thing. Like, just accept that. But there's something very, very different to be said. If you're like, I went through this, I learned from this, whether that was a freaking test you took and like your actual time as a student versus, or like, some like life event. So there's something to be said about where are you actually? If you're new, you're not that good. Stop pretending. You're not that good. I think that there's like a lot of like bullshit out there about like, do not fake it till you make it. Outwork your insecurities. Get objective data that you are good at this thing. In the beginning, you're not. And so when I first started out, I was already 5 years into, because it was like 2014. So it was the end of 2014 though. So I was 5 years roughly into treating. And I was like, I am good at this. I wasn't like, I'm not sure. I'm like, I know I can get people better. I've been doing it for 5 years. And so I'm just going to communicate the things that I'm doing. Yes, is there a learning curve to learning how to communicate it and put it, on an Instagram post for sure. But there was never like insecurity around like, can I do this? Because I was like, because yes, I can do this. So I think big thing is be okay with where you're at, be honest about where you're at. And for those that are worried about coming off as, the word I want to say is immature. That's not the correct word, but the people that are worried about that, like, teach from the scar, not from the wound. You have to have been moved on from these things and actually taken a lesson from it and talking about that.
That's a book title.
I don't even know where I heard that, but I've heard that. It's probably in the trauma world somewhere. I don't know, Sean.
It's yours now. It's yours now. Teach from the scar, not from the wound. I think there's a lot there. What I really like about that is it gives people authority to heal And at the same time, it gives people authority to talk about what they've already healed from.
That.
It's really good.
Yes.
You're making me think. I'm not sure what I want to say next. So I'll go. What does the person who's new do then? Because here's the, you follow the issue. I'm new. Okay, fine, Shante. I'm new. I'm not that good. So what do I do? Go online and say, hey, I'm not that good, but hire me anyway?
Nope. You go online, say what you know, and look to help. That's literally it. We will always get those early adopters. And I did a meme about this, and I'm like so proud of this meme. It didn't get much traction, but that's okay, because in my heart, I really loved it. For those of you that are listening, and if you ever watched Sex and the City, I loved that show. There's an episode where Samantha is talking to Smith Jared, and he's just starting to become a model, and he's like, it's not working. And they're at a bar, like a gay bar, and this guy comes up to him and is like, are you the absolute hunk? And Samantha goes, see, I told you, first come the gays, then the girls, then the industry. Now you have those early adopters that for whatever reason they resonate with you. They really like you. And so what I say for business is first comes your family, then your friends, then the industry, then the strangers. So in the beginning, it's going to be your mom. It's going to be your friend. It's going to be someone at your gym, people that are close to you that are going to say, you know what, I am willing to give you a shot. So you focus all your energy on them and you share what is happening in those interactions with them and the results that you're getting there. That's all that you can do is focus on the ones that are right here. One of the things, the downsides of social media, and I'll be the first to champion social media, but one of the downsides of it is the numbers, right? Where people think that just because they have something to say, they deserve an audience. Just because they have something to say, they deserve 1 million followers. And I'm like, you haven't earned shit. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, start where you're at, love on your early adopters. Your only focus when you're first starting out is to get the best results for your people. So I truly believe that the best online businesses start in person. Get the results, get the reps, get the experience, get the confidence. And then you literally just share what you're doing. When I first started, and Kay started the same thing, or Kelly's threat, whatever he goes by now. When I first started, that's literally all I shared was what was I doing in clinic. It wasn't necessarily with the clients that I have, the patients that I have, but whatever I did that day and it helped someone, I would go online and say that. And then there was the caveat of in the caption, because we have 2,200 characters on Instagram, which I love. I would just be like, hey, I don't know if it's going to help you. If you really want to make sure it helps you, get assessed. I think we're trying to put ourselves out there. It's like, this can definitely help you. You should come see me. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe it will help you. It helped this person who had X, Y, and Z and who I've been working with. If you want more, come see me at the clinic and we'll do the best we can and go from there.
Mm-hmm. What do you do then? Because you teach people how to build businesses online.
Yeah.
What do you do when the person signs up for your course who hasn't done it in person yet? Do you tell them, I think you just start you're trying to
I tell them it's going to take longer. That's all. I just tell them it's going to take longer. So I help people build businesses, but realistically, what I'm looking to help them do is build a personal brand. And there is a difference between the two, but they're just going to
speak to the difference. Cause I agree there's a difference. Yeah. And I think it's important to parse it out.
Yeah, I would say its most basic understanding is personal brand is simply how you're representing yourself. You have a personal brand right now, whether you want one or not. Everyone that's listening, you are your personal brand. A brand is your reputation. It's a promise that it's a promise. This is what you're going to get. Branding is how you make people feel. Mm-hmm. A business is simply that you're going to get paid for this thing. So yes, you can turn a personal brand into a business. You can look to monetize this thing. You have to have a profit if you're looking from a government IRS perspective. Otherwise, it's a hobby. But there's the difference between the two. So for people, what I'm looking to help them do is build a personal brand and refine their personal brand, and helping them to show up and build trust. We are all in the type of business of trying to get attention. That's the most valuable currency. So how can we get attention? How do we earn attention? How do we show up and provide value, which I think you are phenomenal at articulating and speaking about. And that's my goal, is help people do that using Instagram. And then if they want to look to monetize that and build a business around it where they are providing a service for people in exchange for money, cool, we can go to that as the next step. It is easier if they've started in person. That's what I tell them. I'm like, yes, it is much easier if you started in person because it's easier to build trust. I can go and have a time with you and actually hang out with you and, have interactions in person. You can set them up. Online, it's like you're kind of just shouting into the ether there and being like, I hope this lands with somebody. Well, so I just tell people, It'll take longer.
The thing I think that makes in-person so much easier is the in-between moments. And the in-between moments are where I think a lot of trust is actually earned, because online, people see what you want them to see. In person, people see what there is, and you can't fake what there is. And so, you can be not that good in person, and someone can still say, that person isn't that good yet, but I'm watching them bust their ass to get better every day, and I want them to get better with me. Online, right? Like they're like, I don't know. That doesn't sound like it makes any sense. So I'm going to move on to the next account. Swipe. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And they're not swiping left. They're swiping up.
Yes.
Swiping left is left yes or is left no?
I don't know what. I have never been on those, so I don't know.
Good for us.
Right?
I got hitched up before you could get laid online.
Good for us.
I'm not saying I wouldn't use it. I'm just saying I never needed it.
I don't know exactly. I don't know that's one thing with tech that I don't know. I love that, the in between moments. You nailed it. You 100% nailed it. And I think that we can look to do that online, at least with Instagram, which is why it's my favorite platform, because of things like stories.
Right.
That's the closest we can get to the in between moments. But there's so many more afforded in person. But I love that. I love that you put a name to that, the in-between moments. That's so good.
Well, you know what it is? I was talking to my mentor last week about my own account, because now that I'm VP of marketing at Active Life, I'm a big deal now. It's, should the socials look more like me and not like my face? Should it look more like what my account looks like, or should it look more like what the company account looks like? And my lean is it should look more like me, because we are not established in such a way that people know who we are well enough that we can just be a company. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I also think, John,
good,
that businesses would do better to position themselves more as personal accounts, as an individual running this thing, than just because of the trust factor. And I think COVID kind of expedited that, where people were like, I just want to talk to a human. As much as I hate being on the phone, like I don't want to call and have a robot and like I can't get through. So I think that there is a trust factor that, as much as people may push back against social media, like we inherently understand that I can trust an individual. I won't even say human now, an individual more than a big faceless company. So I like that kind of lean towards, yes, there can be professionalism around it, whatever that's going to look like. But I do like that lean towards there's an individual here and we care.
We're people.
Yeah.
And it's, one of the things I tell my wife, because I can't get out of talking about business. I love talking. It's so cool, because to me, it's not even about what it is about is the human condition. Yeah. Why does somebody buy something? Why does somebody like something? Why is that t-shirt worth more money with that marking on it than it would be with that marking on it when it's the same fucking t-shirt?
Same thing.
So cool. Yes. So one of the things that we talk about is when you go to a restaurant, I'm like, if they tell you a story about where the food came from, I'm spending more money on it all day long, right? Like, hey, would you like the ribeye or the strip steak? The ribeye is great. Let me tell you about where the strip steak comes from. You know what? I'll take the strip. I'll take the strip. That's It's people buy stories, and I want to make our company an amalgamation. I think that's the right word, of the stories of the people who make the company.
I like that. People buy stories, and they buy the stories that resonate the most with them, that they care about the most, because people will also be like, that story, I don't like it, or that is not me, which is fine, right? It's not about trying to have mass appeal. It is connecting with the people that are the best fit and that you can help the best. I like that. I totally agree.
Well, when I look at yours, when I look at your personal brand, the Shante Cofield Movement Maestro brand, there are simple things that I think you do really well that are subtle that I want to bring attention to. And one of them is color, right? Your car is green.
Yes, it is intentional.
Your microphone has a similar green on it. There's a similar green light in the background. what came first, the microphone? And then you were like, I need to get a car that looks like this microphone, or how did that work?
The car came first and the color came second. The car was that color. But so my original colors were actually similar to what you're wearing right now. It was blue. It was like a blue, gray, black. This is the logo. It was an M square, but like a 2, because it was Movement Maestro. It's like an M square and like a circle around it. Very rudimentary. I'm all about action. Like, take action, figure it out. Let's keep it moving. So I had a friend help me out, and I was like, okay, cool. This is good. I don't know. I had that for like a year or maybe a year and a half. I don't remember. And I was like, I want to tighten things up. And I knew that I wanted I like sharp lines. And I was like, I want the logo to have sharp lines. I wanted a bit of a different design with this. And I was like, maybe I'll change my colors. I wasn't married to the original ones, but I wasn't hating them either. I, at the same time, went and got a Jeep. I didn't go there looking for a green Jeep. I went like we all do, where you're like, I'm just going to go look. I'm going to go maybe test drive something, but I had no intention of driving anything home. So I moved to California in 2016, and I bought the Jeep in 2017. Like, one of my dreams growing up was like, I want to live by the beach and drive a Jeep and have a surfboard coming out of the back of the Jeep. I don't even surf, Sean. I don't go near the water, but I was like, this look cool. Like, I'm not going in the water. Everyone knows this, but it was like, it looks cool. So my car was like kind of on its last leg. It had got me, we drove from the East Coast here, and it was like kind of on its last leg. And, I had a Pontiac Aztec. I loved that car. That was like my dream car when I was in high school, but could not afford it then. So got it when I was like an adult, but they don't make them anymore. So it needed a new part, and it was like going to be expensive. And the mechanic was like, you should maybe just get a new one. Like, he's like, if you want, you can pay me money, but also maybe pay someone else money and just get a new one, because this is going to continue to be an issue. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go look. I'll go look at Jeeps. And I went and looked at Jeeps, and I was like, I just don't want a brown one. That's it. I was like, I don't color. I just don't want a brown Jeep. It seems ugly. I went and drove like a tan one, and I was like, oh, it's kind of okay. And then when I got back to the dealership, they were like, he was like, trying to finagle and haggle and everything. And they had the green one on the showroom floor, but it had like big wheels on it. It had it's called like a Tanga top, like this angled top. And I was like, I don't really like that one, but like, I like that color. And I was like, how much for that one? He was like, it's the same one that you drove. And I was like, oh, it looks completely different. Like, that should have been like a little alert, a little foreshadowing for me that like, you're going to spend all your money on a Jeep, because like, it's like a toy. You just like put the pieces on. Mm-hmm. So he was like, it's the same as the one that you drove. It just has like different parts in it. We can take those off. And I was like, how much for me to drive it off the showroom floor today? So I was like there for a million hours and wound up driving it home, but did not go in looking for that or that color. And I was like, there's something about this that I've always liked bright colors and things like that. And so drove home with that, and then was just like, you know what? I think I'm going to use color sample for this and pull it for that. I was getting a new website built, and then that color stuck. It was never, I want this color, I'm going to build something around it. It was, oh, I got this color. I like it. People seem to like it. Like, I get a ton of compliments on it. People are just like, they're just happy around it. And I was like, I love that. So now it's just easy to pull in, and like, whenever I'm looking at decorating things, I'm like, it's bright, it's fun. And that's the story on the story there is like, colors communicate things. And yes, we could go into like the color psychology, but things that are bright and neon, like very 90s, it's fun. And I was like, cool, we're doubling down on that.
Well, the cool thing is you could go into the color psychology, speak all highbrow as if you were like, I need a car that elicits the following emotion. But the reality is you just got a car that you liked. And then you made it you.
Yeah. I was like, I like this thing. This is cool. Like, we're going to bring meaning to it. One of the things I teach, and I actually was just talking to one of the clients about this, is people with naming, right? They get really caught up with naming and logos. And yes, there are certain things that make things more memorable. And so you want to have like alliteration and things like that. But at the end of the day, how like good a name is or how cool it is comes after the fact. Right, with Nike and things like that. Like, the logo by itself was like kind of stupid. You're like, that's the thing? Like a check mark? What even is that? But it has this story around it. We know what it stands for. We know what it means. We know what we think we know, what they've told us, like what it cares about. And suddenly we're like, wow, I like that brand. And that's the same thing that happened with the color, and happened with car, and happened with, because I'm like, the Movement Maestro, objectively, in my opinion, is like not a very cool name, but you put like years into it, and people like you, and you share your values, and you show up consistently, and you build something around it. And suddenly people are like, oh man, I want a name like that. And I'm like, but just like taking objectively, like, isn't that cool though? So, you infusing things into it.
Well, what's interesting about Movement Maestro is that it was perfectly relevant when you were helping people with their movement. And now it's not relevant at all to what you do.
No.
But people still find you.
Exactly. And that was a big decision too of like brand identity, and it's been established and we're going to keep it. And that was a thought, like, should I switch? Should I not? But realistically, my niche is movement people anyway. Mm-hmm. So like, yes, is what I teach, is what we teach and what we talk about relevant to anyone in any business? Yes. But we know people are like, I want to see myself. I want to be able to like know that it's specifically for me. So it stays still, I'm still speaking largely to the people that know that I'm definitely talking to them are going to be in the movement space. They're going to be in that health and fitness wellness space. So I was like, well, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to make it work. If I was starting out right now, no, clearly I wouldn't use that.
Today you would be the social sommelier. And you'd be teaching people how to spell sommelier.
Exactly. The same as Maestro. Exactly. It's same.
Yeah. What I think is so cool about that is, and I want to come back to the importance of a name in a second, or an affiliation, if you will, with a name. Nike still would have been successful if they were Blue Ribbon Sports.
Yep.
And they did everything that they did the same way that they were doing it when they were, when they went from being Blue Ribbon to being Nike. Mm-hmm. Blue Ribbon Sports would have been successful if they endorsed Michael Jordan.
Yep.
Right. It would have worked.
Totally.
But I believe that depending on the name, it can actually have an impact or an influence, if you will, on how people perceive you. And the best example of that I can think of in a space that you and I both know very well right now is the CrossFit space. So there are a lot of gyms who used to be CrossFit whatever, and now they're community fitness whatever, or they're, whatever nonsense. They're still doing CrossFit and calling themselves something else for whatever ethical or whatever otherwise reason. How do people decide about that when they've borrowed a name from somebody else? That becomes their identity, and then they want to change the name but not the identity, right? Because how many of those gyms moved or cleaned up their aesthetic or changed their programming completely, got new equipment? Like most didn't.
Totally. I think the thing to think about with that is, and this ties into pricing, in my opinion. It's all storytelling, right? Pricing to me is storytelling. And when we're setting a price, and if you look at what the market is holding, it's just, what story are people used to hearing? You don't have to you don't have to say that same story or tell that same story, but you have to be aware of what they're used to hearing, because then it's like, okay, well, then what story am I going to tell? Do I have to get ahead of this? Am I going to prepare myself for people being confused just because they're used to hearing it? I would say the same thing with naming, and that's a great example of CrossFit. And when people hear CrossFit, they think they have a story in their head. I've seen this time and time again with physical therapists, and them taking physical therapy out of the name because people have this association, this preconceived notion. They've heard this story about what physical therapy is. And so I would say, if you're going to switch names, it's a great opportunity, right? If you decide you're going to switch names, because you have a moment to be like, what is the story that I am actually trying to tell? What are the values? What am I trying to convey? How do I want to be perceived? And then choose accordingly. Yes, ideally you do this when you are first starting, but I think when you're first starting, you don't know as much. So it's like, just pick something and get going and build this and get clear on what your values are and what your mission is and what you care about and what you stand for and who you're looking to try and attract, how you want to be perceived. And then once you get clear on that and you're like, actually, we're not that, we're this, then we pull the Band-Aid and we change the name and we pull something that's associated with that. I think that, it's a really good point though, of being cognizant of what is the story that people are used to hearing, and do you feel like fighting against that?
The first person I knew who didn't use the affiliate name CrossFit, who was a CrossFit gym, was Logan Gelbrick. He was you know who that is?
I don't.
Logan was the first episode of the Active Life podcast ever. Thank you, Logan.
Amazing.
Thanks for coming on when I had no idea what I was doing. Now I just have no idea what I'm doing. His gym is called Deuce Gym. It's in Venice, California. So
I know Deuce.
So I remember I was like, so you're not a CrossFit gym? He's like, no, we are a CrossFit gym. We just don't call it CrossFit. So why not? And he said, well, because we want to control the narrative around what we do. And when people hear the term, they think they know what it is. And we don't want people to think they know what it is. I'm like, damn, Why not think of that? It was just really smart.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But it also made sense given where we all started and what we were doing, that like we did want people to think a certain thing and we did want to be part of a certain thing. Like, Ramwad, perfect example. Like, yes, I want to play off of this because I want people to think it's this thing. It's helpful for me.
Now they're pliability.
Really?
You didn't know that?
No, I'm like so removed. I get like every now and then I get like a little hit of something. I'm like, oh.
I thought you knew all the things. They're now pliability.
Pliability.
And I saw something last week. I was like, this is odd. It was a commercial with Noah Olson talking about Ramwad with the word pliability on it. And I'm like, so they're using old content? I don't.
Yeah. How's that working?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think it's a smart move. I think that their rebrand is really sleek. And it is a much more broadly reaching message. I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, these massive shifts, quote unquote massive shifts, make sense as CrossFit changes and what people want. If we're looking at market share, then yeah, it makes sense to change. K-Star shifted from mobility WOD to ready state. Like that makes sense. And Brian McKenzie switching into, was it shift now? Like it makes sense that people are doing these things, especially if the thing that they started out with and were really attached to has changed a lot. Like it would be interesting. It would be really interesting to see if the thing that they were attached to hadn't really changed, but everything, changes. But I would be interested to see if everyone had moved. I think, yes, we would see some of it because people evolve, but at the same time, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. It'd be really interesting.
So speaking of things shifting, Instagram in 2018, when I went all in on it, I was DMing people at 5:30 p.m. wherever they lived. So I was searching the hashtag shoulder pain, back pain, knee pain, those 3 hashtags. And then I was geo searching based on where they were in the world. Right. And I would make a note of like, I had time zones written out. I was like, these accounts have hashtagged this and they're in this time zone, and people respond most when you message around 5:30 p.m. So you're going to message this list of 200 people at this time tomorrow. Right. Like that was how I got Active Life from being nothing to being something. And now you can't do that. Now you get shut down.
That's remarkable, Sean.
Well, it's something. It's remarkable is the right word. It's worth talking about.
Exactly. It's worth talking about. That is it's worth remarking about.
Right. Wow. That was peak psychopath days. but my question to you is, do you ever cold outreach to people? Do you ever send a DM? No?
No, I don't ever cold outreach to people. No, the closest thing to a cold outreach is if someone, and I very rarely do this, but if someone, and it's never related to my field, our field, if someone writes a really thoughtful comment on like a post, and usually it's like a big post, sometimes it's an inflammatory post, and if someone writes a really thoughtful comment, I've probably done it a handful of times, I will message them and just be like, this was really profound. Thank you for sharing that. But that's it. There's never been like, hey, you're new here. Hello. I don't do that. Mainly because I think that's like the introverted side of me. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I'll talk to you if you initiate. Or for those that are listening that are into human design, I am a projector, and projectors wait to be invited to things. And so if someone starts a conversation, yes, I will speak, but I typically won't be the first to be like.
So the big lesson there is, if you want to talk to Shante, just reach out.
Yes.
Okay.
100%. 100%. Yes. And I will. I spend time on the big thing I took from you, from that, your remarkable actions, is the time. Like, you give so much time, Sean. You work so hard at what you're doing. And when it comes to building a business, building a brand, building a community, the number one thing is like, start off by giving your time. And like, that is incredible. Like, yeah, people can look at it and be like, oh, he's doing so many, like whatever, with people helping you or whatever. But like, that's a lot of time, Sean.
Oh, dude, I appreciate you acknowledging it. The tips of my thumbs were without feeling.
Like, it's so much.
Yeah, it took until about Valentine's Day that year 2018, before my thumbs started feeling normal.
I just lost feeling. My God, that's a lot.
Well, you got to understand, right? I left clinical practice where I was earning $10,000 a month plus profit at the end of the year to take an online business that was going to pay me $3,500 my first month if I didn't do something about it. I had a house, a wife, a kid. Like what? I had to do something. So it was, babe, I'll see you in February. And
Sean, is that how you operate in general? Are you a burn the ships kind of guy?
Less so now. Because
just wondering, there's no judgment.
No, I'm not. I didn't take it as judgment at all. Yes, my set point is napalm. But that was when I was responsible for me. That was easy. I used to go to bed at night and be like, am I going to be able to make enough money for myself? And that's what kept me up. Once I got a lot of clarity that, dude, yeah, you can make enough money for yourself. Like maybe not doing X, Y, Z, but you could do it. It wouldn't matter what field you drop me into. I now know how to earn enough money for myself. Now the sleep I lose is about, am I going to be able to earn enough money so that everybody on this team can eat and eat well? I believe burning the boats is often the best way to do it. But I've now learned through the coaching of people like Ken Andruko, who is my full-time mentor all the time. I worked with Lacey. I think you know Lacey out of Washington State. I'm blanking on her last name right now, and I don't know why.
That last name.
It's driving me nuts. Anyway, Lacey, I'll find her. I'll come back to her. She helped me a lot with my leadership, and the number one thing that I study now is leadership. And what I've learned is there is a time to scorch the earth. And there is a time to ask people what they would like to plant. And so and there's a time to be like, oh, cool that you want to plant all of that. We need more of this. So this much of the land is going to be this. What do you want to put over here? All right, you want to try corn this year? We'll try corn this year. So I now have a balance of I like that. Of all of it.
I like it.
But whenever it's my proverbial balls, they're on the table. Right? Like we just launched the flagship. That required, collateralizing my house. That was not hey, let me just take a little chance. Let's see what happens here. No, that was everything. Right? So I go hard.
I like that. I like the options that people are given. That's why I like talking to you. It's like I love having podcasts and having the ability to share ideas via social and things like that, so that people can figure out where it works for them and see where they're at and take that path.
Well, I can say from experience that my time is the number one thing that I protect. And you have been one of the people who has given me most of my time back when it comes to social media with very simple things. You've been extremely helpful. So I'll give you several examples. One, telling me, hey man, I like the content you're putting out. I want more people to see it. Change your outfits and your content. Something I've done in the past, I've taught people to do in the past, took for granted, didn't do. I just wear the same sweatshirt to work every day. And you were like, change the outfit from time to time. I'm like, okay.
It's like the same video. People don't know.
Right. But so I'm doing that and it will save me time. Because if one post in one outfit reaches 100 people and a different outfit reaches 200 people, well, I just got double the people in the same amount of time. You told me to download, what was that image quote? Is not an image quote. What's
InShot.
InShot. Right? Went from how the fuck do I make these Twitter posts fit?
They're all different sizes.
Dude, I was like, damn, how do I do this? And then you were like, just do this. And then I posted one and you were like, hey, great job on the quick adoption. Instagram doesn't like that blue background. Make it all black.
Just one.
I'm like, okay, or one color, right? And I was like, oh, okay. I could do that. So then I made it all black. I'm like, damn, you're giving me very simple, very easy, very tactical things that I can do that make my social media easier for me to run and more valuable for people to look at.
That's the goal. And then you discovered apply all.
That was a life changer. I'm like, whoa, I can push this double check button.
Double arrows. Double check mark, you're good.
But so is that the kind of stuff that you're teaching people in your intensives?
Yeah, you get the both and because it takes both sides of things. So I will absolutely teach the didactics, the technical side of things. I go so far as to share my screen. I love technology, Sean. I love it. It can help us so much. So I rig it so that I can share. I have my phone and I share my screen while I'm doing these calls, and I will show people, this is how I make this post. This is how you do this reel. This is how you resize images, because people don't know. And it's annoying to Google that and share that and go and search for that. So I'll cut the time down for you and show you how I do it. And then we also zoom out and it's like, hey, who are we speaking to? Like you are way, way ahead, right? Because you know your audience. It's just refining little things. But some people are just starting and I'm like, all right, cool. My goal is to help you get to where you're going or on that journey faster than it took me, and learn from the things that I did, because I didn't really necessarily have this specific niche. I didn't understand the importance of it. The landscape has changed a bit. So giving people that understanding, that general understanding overview, rather, of how to use social media, how to start with a niche, how to speak to people, what to do if Instagram dies. So you have this 30,000 foot view, but we also zoom in and get the technical stuff, because I know that does absolutely hold people back and hang people up. So we get a little bit of both, and we do it all in 6 weeks, and it's pretty amazing.
I imagine the way that you teach people to find their avatar client is different than the way that most people are learning to find their avatar client. And I have no reason to believe that, except that you're not an average person.
So I would like to think that, and I do it a few ways. One, some people come in already with something and with direction, which is great. And then what I'm going to encourage them to do is one of the hardest things that they may ever be asked to do, which is get more specific. Especially people coming from the brick and mortar space or the in-person space. We know we can only niche down but so much in person, because you're limited to by who can actually come through your door. So it's tough to be like, I'm the thumb guy, because how many people have thumb issues that are going to come see you in this town? Mm-hmm. When we go online, that's the best thing that you can do. Knees over toes guy is the best example I can ever give of this, of hey, get specific. And my girl, Courtney Conley, right? So Ben is one of my good friends. Courtney Conley, she's Gait Happens, one of my good friends, and she does feet. So getting specific about the problem you solve, that's what I need people to do, is get specific about the problem you solve. That's inherently going to exclude some people, include some people. And if from there, then you're like, okay, and it's for this demographic, cool. But a lot of times people will start off with okay, this is the demographic, and it's still very broad. And the problem that they're solving is not very clear. And so my goal is to just get them started thinking about that. I actually came up with this, I think it's 41 questions, because if you want better answers, ask better questions. Sometimes that means asking more questions. So I was seeing people do these niche down drills, but they were just so nebulous. And I was like, I think we need more questions here. Oftentimes, because when people are coming into the online space, they themselves are kind of going through a transition and pivoting. And they're like, I don't want to be doing the thing I was doing before. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we have to figure out, do you have the expertise to move into this new thing? Does it make sense? Where are you at? And so I wrote up a workbook that's just all about that. So I have them do that as well. And then we spend time largely the entire 6 weeks. We have one session that's dedicated to it. And then they keep coming back to that over time of what's the problem you solve? Who do you want to be solving it for? People tend to get really caught up in how they solve it. And that doesn't really matter as much. We can use the posts to show that. I'm looking at the bio, which is what people are going to see first. What's the problem you solve? Who are you solving it for? And then from there, I ask them again to take action. And I say, just create content. Create. And notice what you're creating. And if what you're creating doesn't match your bio, don't change your content, change your bio.
Yeah. That's a really critical point you're making there. One of the mistakes I see people make, and I don't have, all I have is what I would call the hand grenade to throw into the room, right? Which is hey, that's wrong. Boom. So I don't do it, because I think it would be too disruptive for people to just be gifted a bunch of problems without any suggested solutions from someone who is supposedly knowing better. I think I see a lot of people design an avatar, right? And then they talk about this avatar on their account, and whether it's in their posts or in their bio or both or neither, they're showing this avatar in a way, right? And then they go about writing content that is completely irrelevant to that avatar. Or maybe even more egregiously, accepting clients for a process that isn't built for that client because of the scarcity mind of I need all the clients.
Nailed it.
So can you speak to after you've developed your avatar, what's the relevance? Like how do you use it?
For sure. I think that I'm going to flip that on its head from the beginning is I don't want people necessarily thinking about an avatar. I want them thinking about the problem that they solve. That's it. What is the problem that you solve? And then secondarily, is there someone that you solve it for? Like, again, I'll go back to Knees Over Toes guy. He helps people with knee pain. It's not like, okay, you have to necessarily specifically be doing this sport. Yes, if he really wanted to get specific, it would be basketball because it was like shows that. But his niche, however you say it, is knee pain. And it's just, let me solve this problem and let me see how I'm solving this problem. Let me see like my understanding of how I like to talk about this. When people are like, I serve this one person in this demographic, and they can kind of get into the psychographics of things, I think they get away from what they're actually good at and what they actually can do and run this business, right? Businesses are built on solutions to problems. What is the problem that you solve? So I want people to stay specific and consistent to that. And then if they're looking at, okay, how do I communicate that? I wouldn't even necessarily so much worry first about the person. If we're talking about social media, I would learn the language of social media because it's different, right? Instagram and communicating on Instagram is different than another platform. So it's a matter of, I teach Instagram, but one of the coolest things for me is like people go to the program and they're like, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, cool, that's a really valuable lesson that you learned. Maybe your language, your platform is something else. So looking to get proficient in how do I communicate my ideas and solve problems on this platform. Then we see who it attracts, because all you can do is show up as, again, back to the beginning of the conversation, this authenticity piece. What are you proficient at? What are you good at? What comes naturally for you? Start there, see what it attracts, and then we can look to, grow, massage, pivot. One of the things that I see people start off with is they can be hesitant to be on camera, right? Which is tough because social media is largely, or Instagram's largely a visual platform, but there's also a large written component there. I will not force someone to be on camera. I say, okay, what do you like doing? You're like written? Okay, cool. Then we're going to do written content. We're going to do it in this way. Let's see who it attracts. Cool. It's attracted this audience. When this audience starts asking questions, what I have seen is that people, most of us, are helping types. And we're like, I want to help this person. And I realize that if I do a video, it may help them. And that's when they start to shift because they're like, I see the value for someone else. So I'm never going to force this person. It starts off with what's the problem you solve? What's the way that you know how to solve it? What's the way that you feel comfortable and proficient in communicating it? Start there. That's the bait you're putting out. See what fish you attract. Do you want those fish? Okay, cool. And then when we're like, okay, I want to attract more fish, or I want to help them out. That's when we start to see people pivoting and kind of like, okay, I'll go into video and I'll do a bit more and I'm enjoying this. That's the process I go after.
You gave some really valuable things there that I want to make sure we reflect on. One is when you described a niche, you're not describing it as a person, but a problem. And the person is, they're a 34 to 60-year-old female living in Northern California with 2 kids and yada, 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 yada. And then the question is like, so if they're 33, you're not taking them as a client. Oh, of course I am. Well, then why are we doing that?
We're saying that.
Right. And so
it always happens.
Of course it does. And it's like, and you should take them. They're not disqualified because their birthday hasn't hit yet. What you've done a better job there than me. I've always thought of the niche as a mindset. What is the mindset of the person you're trying to help? What you did was you reverse engineered it. And you talked about it as the problem that if you can so clearly describe the problem that they have, all of the things that they've tried, why those things didn't work, then they know that you understand them. And that's it.
Mindset. Yeah.
That's really good.
100%.
So that's the first thing you did. And then the second thing is, but how do I come up with content? Well, you start solving problems for people. And the video that you would have sent to them about how to search this thing online, you just make it public. And you have content.
You have content. That's literally it. Sometimes I hesitate to say the word problem because when you are so far along in your career, oftentimes you don't realize that it's a problem for people. Mm-hmm. So when I break down like types of content, I will break it into 3 categories of informational, opinion, and engagement. And I would lump that into the informational category. And it's just, I want you to teach and share everything you know. I don't want you to worry about giving too much away because we're providing general solutions to general problems. People will pay you to make it specific to their whatever's going on.
That's what they pay for.
That's it. 100%. That is what they're paying you for. So make it specific for me when I'm ready to hear it, specific to my mindset, where I'm at, my problem, my whatever, my everything. So when I'm teaching them, I'm like, I just want you to provide information, teach everything you know. Nothing is too simple. More simple, more better. But you have to understand that we're delivering this concept. So if we do want to get into the mindset of people, I want you to, again, think about the language of the platform. People are on social media for escapism. They're not on there to be like, I want to learn all this deep stuff. Cool, if they get that, awesome. But for the most part, they are using it as a form of escapism. As such, when they go online, they're trying to decompress. So you don't want to be hitting them with this super complex, super deep things anyway. The more simple that we can keep it, the more likely they are to actually be able to retain some of it, digest some of it, maybe implement something, or even just be bookmark it because this looks like it could be helpful for when I'm not so tired. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going after. That's the language of the platform. And then we can, look to refine things from there.
You mean when I wake up at 2:30 in the morning because my kid came in to tell me that she went to the bathroom? Because, you couldn't, there's no way she can go to the bathroom without telling me.
No, she has to tell you.
Right. I'm like, oh, good. Good. Do you need help? No, I just wanted you to know. Great. Okay. You can go back to bed.
Is this number 1, 2, or 3? Which of all the kids tell you?
Typically that would be 2. Three oftentimes will wake up and doesn't know she needs to go to the bathroom. And it's all right, you need to go to the bathroom. But 2 will come in and be like, Daddy, yeah, I just went potty. Okay. Do you need something? No. I'm like, okay.
Your blessing.
Go back to bed. I don't want to go back to let's go. We're going back to bed.
Bless you, Sean. Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
But I'll tell you a quick brief story. Today I had a podcast before you that was in person. The person came into studio, and normally I talk to myself about a podcast before a podcast because I want to have the conversation, right?
Absolutely.
I get a text from my wife. Hey, can you go pick up number 3 at school? Number 1 just threw up. She's home with me now. Goodness. I'm like, all right. So I text her back. I'm like, what time does her school let out? I know nothing. What time does your school let out? What time does it start? How do I get in? So I call the school and they're like, yeah, you can pick her up early. I'm like, okay. Because my wife wasn't answering the phone. So I'm like, I'm going to go get her. Yeah. She's leaving school early. And normally kids love to leave school early.
Exactly. Yeah.
I pick my kid up. Amazing. She's like, I don't want to go. I want to do gym class. We have a caterpillar. And she just starts naming all the stuff they have at school. I'm like, I love you. Get in the car. Daddy has a podcast. Get in the
caterpillar.
Car. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, that's my sidetrack dad story.
I love it. That's where people are at, man. They have all that happening all day. Then they're coming on Instagram, hiding in the bathroom. They're not trying to read this super in-depth thing. And so that, yes, then we can look to go into the mindset of this person, but we can take a more general approach and be like, where are most people at when they're using social media? How are they using this? What's the language of this platform?
How in the mode, by the way, to get back for 1 second, what we were talking about before, I posted that whole thing on my story. And that's the in-between moment that you and I were talking about earlier on.
Yes.
Right? It's just, hey,
let
me tell you how I prep for podcasts.
That.
Right?
Yes. Yes. I love that.
Yeah. It's also helpful because I have 3 daughters who are really cute and a wife who's really nice and people like. And so it makes me more likable. We'll take it.
It's great. Just take that. It's great, John.
How in the moment are you getting before you start putting stuff into the world? And I want to express what I mean here is for a second. Sometimes I struggle because I'm like, I got to get something out. And then I just put something up and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? That was a bad post. It was a bad post and it shouldn't perform. And you know, what are you doing? And then there are times when I'm like, I'll spend 30, 40 minutes thinking about a person and then I give them advice and it explodes. And now, to be fair, there are times I do that too. I'm like, this is good. And then it's crickets. And I'm like, and then fuck you, internet.
Right.
But either way, right. How I feel like every time you put something online, it's gold. Are you in the moment before you do it or are you just natural?
Two things. So I'll say what I do and then what I teach, which is largely the same. It's very weird when people teach and do differently. But
you don't have to you can teach where somebody is and do where you are.
That's exactly 100%. So that's a differentiation there of like, one of the things I've been thinking about a lot with podcasting, because I have a client that's like getting more into it's a big thing I push with clients is podcasting. I think they're great for the right person. But one of the things that I see people get hung up with podcasting, it's easy for me to see it because there's a little bit more outlining going into it for some people, is that they think they're supposed to say something or supposed to teach something instead of teaching what they're actually doing. And I'm like, just say what you actually do, which is different than, hey, this is what I did when I first started. This is where I'm at now. So 100% when I'm teaching, I am teaching, hey, this is where you're at, and this is what you should be doing, you need to be doing, or what I suggest doing in order to get to here. What I currently do is I've always been a like day of poster, just like you, where sometimes you're like, this isn't my best work, but like I have something I want to say about this, or like I have a running list I have a few running lists. Like I use folders in my notes section of my phone, and there's a few different categories of things. And like I will sometimes just pull something out of there because I'm like, I want something to be up, and there's nothing wrong with that. And doing that, not everything's going to be like, I'm so into this. And then there's other days that I will spend hours doing something because I like to do the video editing. I know Annie Miller the same way. Like I enjoy this side of things. And it's not time wasted. I don't have 3 kids to take care of or like put through college. So it's fine. I'm like, I can take some more time and like make a video. It's fine. Like I have a cat. It's okay. So I will spend more time doing that and be really in it. And like you said, some things will take off and others will not. And sometimes you're like, this is a really good one. Most of the time, folks, when you say this is a really good one, it probably is not going to take off because it means it's probably a little more in depth, maybe it's a little bit longer, and short things are typically what really take off. So when you're like, I just had this thing I just did like on the spur of the moment, but like I cared about it, but I kind of was like, I did it. Those are the things that usually take off. It's just the way that it is. When I'm teaching people, I am looking to have them build a habit or establish a habit. And to me, when you're looking to build a habit, it's, to pull from James Clear, never miss twice. So yeah, I am looking to push people to post every day because I don't want you to build a habit. I want you to get over your shit. I want you to get over yourself. I want you to start seeing the world in terms of content. I want you to get more practice with it so it does get a little bit faster. Yes, there's only a certain amount of time it takes to make it. But like when you first start, you like don't know where the buttons are. And you're like, this just takes a long time. So the more reps we get that, the faster, more efficient you get. And so in the beginning, I am like, put it up. I don't care if it's not your best work, like go. Once someone has that, and they're refined and really good, if they're the type of person that they're like, no, I want to wait and I want to do it such that I'm like in it. And that's when I post and I'm like, all right, cool. Because I know they're not going to take like 4 weeks off. Mm-hmm. For me, I find it easier to just, keep momentum going, and I will post even exactly like what you said, where I'll be like, this isn't my best, but it's still good. Mm-hmm. And it'll go up. And then tomorrow I'll be more, moved, inspired, motivated, and like really lean in.
Yeah. I got to the point that I was trying to make several posts a day. And every once in a while I was like, you're just trying to think of something to post. Don't post.
And the volume game. Totally. The volume game.
Yeah. But at the same time, I have these notebooks that are next to my desk. And anytime someone says something that I believe is worth re-saying,
totally,
I write it down. And then I come back to it. Yeah. And if I can't remember what I was talking about, I don't post it because it wasn't that profound. It just felt good in the moment.
Totally. 100%. I will piggyback on that and say, for those of you that are just starting out, whether it's a podcast or posting, use that energy, because sometimes it's sometimes what makes it profound is the moment. And there's nothing wrong with playing off of that, because then you share it and other people may have that moment as well. So if you're thinking about something, you're thinking about a topic and you're like, I need a podcast episode for this week. And you're like wanting this really profound thing, but you keep thinking about this thing, right? Use the thing that you keep thinking about. Same thing with the post, whatever it's like, it just keeps popping in my head. Go with it, because while it may not feel as like, oh, profound and like full of fire is the moment that you thought of it, it will still be good. Flip side, if you wait, oftentimes that fire that you had about it goes away and then you won't post it all. So
that's true.
Use it.
Last thing I want to ask you about before I do want to learn about your intensive that you have coming up, because I genuinely believe that you're doing it in a way that makes it so easy for people to say, I can do this.
That's what I want.
Like you really do coach in an empowering way. And I want to give people an opportunity to learn about that. I just have one last thing I want to ask you about, and then I want to learn about that. One of the things I admire about you is that you have such an extreme level of self-awareness. And you are able to, because of that level of self-awareness, create boundaries for yourself and for other people that are steering of the kind of life that you decided you want to live and that you're going to craft for yourself. I told Annie Miller, she's another one who does this really well.
Totally.
When I was talking to Kelly this past weekend, we were talking, he was like, what do you think we need to do so that we can compete with all these venture-backed companies? I said, well, first of all, we'd have to decide that we wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? That's the first thing. I said, some of the people who I have the most respect for have no interest in scaling, right? It's like they have the business that they want to have. They go to work every day doing something that they love. They get to live a life that's fulfilling outside of their work. Like they've made it. What more is there? And you're one of the people who comes to mind when I think about that. So how did you make that decision, right? I'm not going to hire a team. I'm not, where did that come from?
That is a great question, because I don't think I've ever sat and thought, like, where did it come from? And perhaps it was more of the journey of exclusion and learning your no and just being like, I don't want that. More than anything, more than I want.
But there's so much pressure to want that. And I want to be clear with people as I say this. I want that. So I didn't succumb to the pressure. I'm not asking to get out of my own way. I see the pressure all the time, and I talk to people all the time, and I'm like, hold on a second, just to be clear. I chose this life intentionally. There was an inflection point where I was like, I'm making more money than I know what to do with by myself. Do I want to build something bigger and risk it all? Yeah, I do. Okay, there we go. Yeah. You don't have to say yes to that. So and you can still make a ton of money, by the way. Like Seth Godin, for example, is the bald white guy version of you who's 30 years down the line further, in my opinion.
That's like the best compliment ever.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Love Seth.
But, it's like there's being a business and there's having a business.
Yeah.
You chose to be one.
I think you said something just a few moments ago that maybe is the answer. Is it seems like for you, like another direction, like isn't an option. Like this is you, like it's this or this. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just what it is for me. It's just that it's different than what other people, maybe have been told. I think there's plenty more people out there that are the same way. It is like, this is the only way. My happiness and what brings me happiness is the only way. And I refuse to let anything come and, get between me and that. If my happiness was having this massive team, then that's what I'd be doing. I would have the biggest fucking best team, but that's not my happiness. Cause I'm like, that seems stressful. My happiness is here and a bit more of, contentment with what I have. And this is why I love talking to you. And I love this podcast and this episode, this podcast that you run in general, is that it gives people options. And I'm like, hey, you want to have a million gazillion workers and make all the money in the world? Awesome. But the first part of the sentence there was, you want to. And like
For
I've
you.
identified
For
yeah,
you.
for you. You want it and you want it for you. I think that for me, it was a more of an exclusionary thing of like, okay, my initial trajectory was like, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. It would be nice to like make all the money and go in that direction. And then I learned, I was like, but I don't want that actually. And having the wherewithal, the pause, the support from let's say the support and the lack of questioning from people. I think most people, if you say you want something that's counterculture, even if it's not, people are like, what? How dare you? No one ever said that to me. No one was ever like, wait, what? You don't want kids? Maybe you do, and you'll change your mind. Or like, oh, you want to move to California? No, you don't. Like, I never got that pushback. So it was just like, cool, I'm going to go in the direction of my happiness, which happens to be this lifestyle here. And what I, circling back to the beginning, that authenticity piece, what I want for everyone is whatever their happiness is, whatever they want for themselves. Cool. Full support times a million. So I can't say that there was necessarily a true inflection moment. It was a journey of exclusion of being like, I want to be happy. This isn't making me happy. I'm cutting this thing out. And here's what I'm left with. And I'm really happy with it.
And that's a big reason I wanted to have you on again. And it's a big reason why I want to give you an opportunity to talk to people about what your intensive is that's coming up, because there's so much out there right now that people can do. And from my experience, much of it is somebody telling you how to live the life that they want to live.
Yes.
And what I have profound respect for you for is you're agnostic to the life that they want to live. You're just going to help them pursue it, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
So how do people work with you?
Dude, first of all, thank you. One of the things that's amazing and like makes me feel so good is when people see me. I think that all of us, we want to be seen, but you do a really good job of that. And it's like, I just want to say thank you. Like, you capture me. I know that you see me and then you support me in that way. And I'm like, thank you. To answer your question, how do people work with me? Anytime someone comes in and they're like, hey, I want help with Instagram, I'm going to push them towards my intensive. I run it twice a year. Yes, I do business coaching. I do one-off calls, but I also price anchored it such that like, I want you to take the intensive. It's 6 weeks. We go through, like we were talking about earlier, all the things from the didactic technical portion to the 30,000 foot view. What do you want? What's the business you want? What's the lifestyle you want? Who do you want to be helping? What problem do you want to be solving? And what happens if Instagram was to die? We're running, this will be the 13th round. Like, started this, I don't want to say I started on a whim. I had a different product that I launched and people said they wanted more. So I created this. So this will be the 13th round. We've had over 450 professionals go through this. I love it. 13th round will start February 21st. So the week before then will be registration. And then we hit the ground running. We got 6 calls and we'll end March 28th, I believe is the date. Every call is 2 hours long. I run them at 4 p.m. Pacific time. I will never change that time. It just fits the best. And I know I can show up the best. And this means that the people will get the best. But everything's recorded and sent out. So if folks are in the time zone that's not so agreeable, then there's nothing to worry about with that. Although, Sean, I will say I have had people, God bless them, that wake up in the middle of the night. And I'm just like so moved and like just blown away. And like, I will do anything for those people. The UK, that time zone is just not very good for 4 p.m. But
not for you guys.
Yeah. No, it doesn't work out well. But everything is because we're on the West Coast. So anything that's recorded gets sent out. And for folks that are questioning and wondering, like, would this be helpful for me? I'm always happy to chat in the DMs. And just like Sean, I love that Sean does this. If it's not a good fit, I'm going to tell you. Like, your results are my reputation. I want you to get the best, that you can. So if it's not a good fit, I will gladly send you somewhere else.
And you have the network. You know the people who it's like, look,
my favorite part.
This is an ethical person doing something similar but different that would be better for you than what I'm doing. And so I want to send you there for 2 reasons. One, your result is my reputation. And number 2, you are going to make the experience worse for everybody else in the group. I need them to have and not because you're a bad person.
Exactly.
Because you want something I'm not teaching and you're going to ask questions and complain.
Not a good fit. Yep.
Right.
You're gonna make it worse for everyone. I love that. I love you for saying that.
Well, what happens is, I think too often people are stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, and they're saying,
John.
and they're saying, yes, I can. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. Yes. You're not gonna make it work.
No.
Just only bring the right people in.
Only bring the right people. Make sure, and it ties back into what I said before, make sure it's the problem that you solve. It's cool to learn your no as you go, right? And you're like, actually, I thought I solved that problem, and actually I don't. Cool.
Dude,
it's amazing.
I did about 50 videos today about, I thought I was going to work with the elite athletes for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And nope. Not because I couldn't, because I decided this isn't that much fun. It's great for the ego. Don't get me wrong. I was struggling to fit through doorways, but I was, I'm happier now.
Sean, would you ever go to Wadapalooza again?
I've never been. So I'll tell you the story on air. We can do it. There was a year that I committed to be a sponsor. And when I committed to be a sponsor, it was not inexpensive. It was like 25 grand. And all of the deliverables just started falling off. Oh, we can't give you that. Oh, we can't give you this anymore. We can't give you that anymore. After we had agreed. And so I was like, you know what? I'm out. It's okay. It's okay. I'm out. And the conversation with the former owner, not Guido's ex-partner, that was when I was the least well-managed version of myself. And it was, or among the least well-managed. And it was when they were probably going through some stuff because they got bought the next year. And I think the next year, whatever, it doesn't matter. Those logistics are their logistics. And I was like, you know what? I've never been to your event and I don't want to fucking come. And since then, that has nothing to do with it. I would go to hang out with people I knew were going to be there. But here's the thing, right? I'm the guy who shows up there, and because of the way I've spoken in the CrossFit space about what I believe CrossFit needs to do to be more valuable, to sustain, and to really have meaningful change to the people they're working with. No matter how I say it, it doesn't matter what language I use to say it. It's taken as, you hate CrossFit, go home. So I would be kind of like, I don't know, pick your favorite extremist group at a protest for the opposition, where like the people who go liberal media who go to conservative rallies and try to make them look stupid, and conservative media who go to liberal rallies and they try to make them look stupid, and every time they get shit thrown at them and they're like, oh, how terrible these people are, they threw stuff at me. I'd be the guy getting shit thrown at me.
It just popped into my head. I am fascinated by your evolution and what you bring to the space. And I also just love Miami. There's literally nothing outside of that. I went to like one of the first Wadapaloozas and it rained so hard. And I was like, and I'm also like, outside of the space now, but I just like the warm weather. And so it popped into my head just thinking about that. And like I said, it's been really, really, really cool to watch your evolution and your journey. And I was like, oh, let me just ask Sean. I have him here right now. I'm wondering.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's where that came from.
So for people who are hearing the word evolution, I think what's important for people to know about that is evolution implies time, right? And change with time. You're allowed to do it. And it does not have to be easy. It doesn't have to be fun. If it's worth it, do it. That's what I will leave you all with as it pertains to that. There was a year I was working with over 40 CrossFit Games athletes at the CrossFit Games, from Rich Froning and like the whole slew of them. Right, it was like a walk-in clinic at the Airbnb, and it was really good for the ego. I mean, to the point that I got kicked out of the warm-up area with my table because there was a sponsor who had space in the warm-up area who complained that all the athletes were coming to me. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. This is crazy. And I gave all of that up because I no longer think that space does what it purports to do and could be wildly successful and valuable doing something that they actually already do. Yeah. Right. That was hard because there's a lot of friends. There's a lot of, you already have a brand.
It So much, I imagine.
Yeah.
So much.
But I am way, way, way more inspired to pursue what I'm doing now.
I love that you use that word. And when you come on the podcast, we'll talk about this, but I was very intentional in saying evolution and not change. Because I feel like when you use the word change, it implies this radical new thing and so different. Like evolution to me is you building on past iterations, and that passion that maybe could be misconstrued or came out in weirder ways or less ideal ways then is the same passion that I see now that we all love. And it's I watch you you're turning the Titanic using that same passion. It's directed differently now, but that's what I see as the evolution. And it's been so cool to watch. And, I firmly believe you're going to succeed whatever direction that you go. And I'm 100% bought in and on board with your mission with this, but it's cool to see where that wild energy is pointed now and where it's going now. So that's all.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Shante, where can people find you?
Well, Instagram's always the easiest. The Movement Maestro. Maestro is Maestro. Hit me up in the DMs. I'll get back to you in 5 seconds. Website is the same, themovementmaestro.com. Don't send me any emails because you won't hear back from me. It takes too long. But I will definitely DM you back if you hit me up over there.
Thank you for coming.
And we're on YouTube, actually. Should say that.
YouTube.
Making the push. So if you like the YouTubes, you can check me out there. But Instagram's always the easiest, and would love to hear from you. And Dr. Sean, thank you for giving me the mic, giving me time, giving me just everything. You're the best.
Always a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life Podcast. Please remember, give us a hand, rate it, review it wherever you listen to shows. We are on a mission to humanize the healthcare industry by professionalizing the fitness industry to empower the individual to live a life unlimited by the way that their body looks, feels, or performs. If you are inspired by that mission and want to jump on the wagon, find us anywhere. Active Life Professional on Instagram, Active Life RX on Instagram. Come to me personally at Dr. Sean Pastuch. We want to welcome you onto the train. We want you to be a part of the mission. We want to offer you the opportunity to pursue this right alongside us. We're inspired by your effort, and we hope to help you in your journey. Turn pro.